My name is Mark Blake, and I am 34 years old. I've always been the kind of son who did what was expected of me. I studied hard, worked tirelessly, and tried to live responsibly, even when life threw curveballs my way. My parents, George and Linda, were proud of me, or at least, that's what I believed growing up. I thought being the responsible one would earn me respect, maybe even gratitude. But what I didn't realize back then was that responsibility, in their eyes, wasn't something to be honored. It was something to be exploited. I have one sibling, my younger brother, Ryan. Ryan is 6 years younger than me, and since the day he was born, he's been the golden child. The apple of my parents' eye. The one who could do no wrong, even when he did everything wrong. While I spent my teenage years working part-time jobs to help pay for my own college tuition, Ryan spent his teenage years partying with friends, crashing cars, and somehow still being defended by mom and dad. Boys will be boys, Mom would say whenever Ryan got himself into trouble. He just needs a little more guidance, Dad would add, as if Ryan were some misunderstood genius rather than a spoiled brat. Meanwhile, when I made even the smallest mistake, I got lectures. If I brought home a B on a test, it was, "Mark, you need to focus harder. We expect more from you." If Ryan failed a class, it was, "It's okay, son. We know you tried." Growing up under that shadow wasn't easy, but I told myself I could rise above it. I believed that if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, and proved myself, then one day my parents would finally see me for who I was. So I pushed myself. I graduated from college without a penny of debt because I worked nearly full-time while studying. I got a good job in finance, climbed the ladder, and managed to buy my own modest condo by the age of 29. Everything I achieved, I did on my own. My parents never offered to pay for my tuition, never helped with my down payment, never gave me any kind of leg up. And I was okay with that. I figured they simply didn't have the means. That's why what happened later hit me so hard. It started 2 years ago when Ryan announced he was getting married. He met Sophie, a girl who looked like she stepped out of an Instagram influencer page, and within a year, they were engaged. From the very beginning, Sophie made it clear she wanted a fairy tale life. She loved luxury, expensive vacations, designer handbags. And Ryan, well, he loved being adored. When I first met her, I shook her hand and said, "Welcome to the family." She smiled at me with perfect white teeth and said, "Thanks, Mark. I've heard so much about you." Something in her tone told me it wasn't flattering. The wedding was a massive, over-the-top event. A country club venue, designer gowns, a live band, and enough flowers to decorate half the town. I sat there wondering how Ryan, who was barely holding down a job, could possibly afford all of this. I assumed maybe Sophie's parents were footing the bill. But I was wrong. The real shock came a week later, at a casual dinner with my parents. We were sitting at their kitchen table when Mom dropped the bombshell. "Mark," she said, smiling with that tone parents use when they're about to ask for something huge, "we have some exciting news. We bought Ryan and Sophie a house." I remember blinking at her, certain I'd misheard. "What?" Dad chimed in proudly. "A wedding gift. We wanted to set them up for their future. A beautiful 4-bedroom, 2-story in the suburbs. They'll be moving in next month." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. A house? They bought Ryan a whole house? When I bought my condo, I scraped together every penny of my savings for the down payment. My parents congratulated me but never once offered to help. And now, they were gifting Ryan and Sophie an entire house outright. I forced myself to keep calm. "That's generous," I managed to say, though my jaw was tight. "I didn't know you had that kind of money." Mom's smile faltered just slightly. "Well, we had to dip into our savings. We took out a second mortgage too, but it's worth it. Ryan deserves a fresh start." Deserves. That word cut deep. Did Ryan deserve it more than me? Did my years of sacrifice and hard work mean nothing compared to his charm and neediness? I wanted to leave the table right then, but the evening only got worse. Dad leaned forward, his tone shifting. "Which actually brings us to something we wanted to talk to you about, Mark." I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. "You're doing so well in your career," he continued. "You have a stable job, and you've always been so responsible. We were hoping you could help us out a little with the mortgage payments. Just until we get back on our feet." The words hung in the air like poison. I stared at them in disbelief. "You're asking me to pay for Ryan's house?" Mom reached across the table as if to soothe me. "Not his house, honey. Just our mortgage. We stretched ourselves thin to give Ryan and Sophie a good start, but it benefits the whole family in the long run." I couldn't help it, I laughed. A bitter, disbelieving laugh. "The whole family? How does Ryan getting a house benefit me?" Dad's expression hardened. "Mark, don't be selfish. We've always counted on you to step up when needed. This is just another time we need your help." Selfish. They were calling me selfish for refusing to subsidize my spoiled brother's luxury lifestyle? I looked between them, trying to find any shred of fairness, but all I saw was their blind adoration for Ryan. And for the first time, something inside me snapped. I sat at that table, staring at my parents as if they'd just spoken in another language. For years, I had done everything I could to make them proud, to show them I was reliable, that I could carry responsibility. And now, instead of acknowledging that, they were using it as a weapon against me. "You always step up, Mark," Mom said softly, as if her tone would make the request less absurd. "That's what makes you special. Right? Well, you know Ryan. He just needs a little more support right now. You've always been so strong, so independent. We knew you could handle it." Her words weren't comforting, they were suffocating. I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping across the floor. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice rising. "You drained your savings, you took out a second mortgage, and you handed Ryan a house. And now, you want me to cover your mortgage because I'm responsible?" Dad's face tightened. "Don't twist it. We did what we thought was best for the family." "The family?" I snapped. "Or just Ryan?" The silence that followed told me everything. I left that night without saying goodbye. The days that followed were strained. I tried to throw myself into work, but the anger bubbled beneath the surface, a constant reminder of just how little I mattered to my own parents. I told myself I wouldn't cave, that I wouldn't send them a dime. But every time my phone buzzed with a text from Mom or Dad, I knew what it would say. "Mark, just think about it. It's only temporary. Don't let your pride get in the way of family." They never saw the irony in those words. Then came the first dinner after Ryan and Sophie moved into their new home. I debated not going, but some masochistic part of me wanted to see it with my own eyes. The house was a palace compared to my condo. 2 stories, a massive yard, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances. It smelled new, expensive, like the kind of place you see in glossy real estate magazines. Ryan greeted me at the door with his usual smug grin. "Pretty nice, huh?" he said, sweeping an arm around the entryway. "Mom and Dad really came through for us." Sophie appeared, holding a glass of wine, her diamond engagement ring sparkling under the light. "Mark, can you believe it? We're homeowners." "Sort of," she laughed. "Your parents are just amazing." I clenched my jaw. My parents. Not hers. And yet she reaped the rewards while I was being cornered to pay the bill. The dinner that night was unbearable. My parents beamed with pride as Ryan and Sophie talked about decorating plans, their dream vacations, their plans for hosting holiday dinners. At one point, Ryan leaned back in his chair, smirked at me and said, "Man, you're lucky you don't have to worry about all this. Houses are a lot of responsibility." I nearly choked on my drink. Lucky? I'd fought tooth and nail to buy my modest condo, scraping together pennies and sacrificing vacations, dinners out, even dating seriously because I was too focused on stability. And here was Ryan, calling me lucky while sitting in a house he hadn't lifted a finger to earn. When I didn't respond, Dad cleared his throat. "Mark, did you give any more thought to helping us out? We could really use your support. Just a couple of $100 a month. Nothing you can't handle." I put my fork down and looked directly at him. "No, I'm not paying your mortgage. You made your choice. You decided to gamble your financial security on Ryan. Don't expect me to clean it up." The table went silent. Mom's eyes filled with tears. "Mark, how can you be so cold? This is family." I leaned forward. "Exactly. Family. And if family meant anything to you, you wouldn't be asking me to sacrifice so Ryan can play house. Ryan scoffed. Wow, bitter much? Just because I'm not living in some shoebox condo doesn't mean you have to take it out on us. That was it. I stood up, dropped my napkin on the table and walked out. After that night, things only got worse. I became the villain in my own family story. Mom would call and leave voicemails crying about how I was tearing the family apart. Dad accused me of being arrogant, of thinking I was better than everyone else because I had money. Ryan, meanwhile, painted himself as the victim. He told extended family that I was jealous, that I didn't want to see him happy. The narrative shifted so completely that even my cousins began asking, "Why are you being so hard on your parents?" It was surreal. I wasn't the one who had asked for handouts. I wasn't the one draining my parents' savings. All I had done was refuse to fund a mistake. But in their eyes, I was selfish. And Ryan? He leaned into it. On social media, Sophie posted pictures of their new home, their weekend getaways, their designer furniture. Captions like, "So grateful to start our forever in this beautiful house," or "Blessed beyond words." I wanted to comment, "Blessed by my parents' second mortgage." But I held my tongue. Then came Thanksgiving. I almost didn't go, but again, guilt tugged at me. Maybe things had cooled off, I thought. Maybe we could have a normal family holiday. But the moment I walked in, I knew better. The atmosphere was tense, brittle, like everyone was waiting for the next spark to ignite. Over dinner, Mom asked in a voice sweet enough to rot teeth, "So, Mark, how's work? Still doing well?" "Yes," I said cautiously. "Good," Dad added quickly. "Because things have been a little tight for us. The mortgages, well, it's been a lot. If you reconsidered even just a little." I put my fork down, my appetite gone. I said no. I won't reconsider. Ryan rolled his eyes. "God, Mark, why do you always make everything so dramatic? You could write one check and solve everything, but instead, you'd rather let Mom and Dad suffer just to prove some point." Sophie nodded. "It's honestly sad. Family is supposed to help each other." My hands shook under the table, not with fear but with rage. "You want to talk about family?" I said finally, my voice steady but sharp. "Family doesn't mean draining your parents' life savings to live in a house you didn't earn. Family doesn't mean calling me selfish because I won't bankroll your mistakes. You all want me to be the bad guy? Fine. I'll be the bad guy. But don't expect me to save you when it all comes crashing down." The silence that followed was suffocating. Thanksgiving ended with me leaving early, my parents' disappointed stares burning into my back. Over the next several months, the pressure intensified. My parents hinted, begged, even tried guilt-tripping me through extended family. Ryan flaunted his success, but I could see cracks forming. He was reckless with money, throwing lavish parties, buying a new car, taking Sophie on expensive trips. I knew it was only a matter of time before everything imploded. And when it did, I promised myself one thing. I wouldn't bail them out. I knew it was coming. For months, I watched the social media highlight reel of Ryan and Sophie's life. Designer vacations, luxury handbags, weekend trips to wine country, dinners at five-star restaurants. It was like they thought their house came with a never-ending money tree in the backyard. Meanwhile, I was grinding away at work, living within my means, and steadily building savings. I wasn't flashy, but I was secure. And I knew that security would matter when the bottom inevitably fell out. The call came one Thursday evening. "Mark," Dad's voice was tight, panicked. "We need to talk. It's urgent." I almost didn't pick up. I almost let it go to voicemail. But some part of me wanted to hear it, to confirm what I already knew was coming. "What's wrong?" I asked, though I already had a pretty good guess. There was a pause, a sigh. "The mortgage. We're behind. The bank has been calling. If we don't figure something out soon, we could lose the house." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. There it is. The house. The shrine they built to Ryan and Sophie's new life. The house they wanted me to fund. "How far behind are you?" I asked, my tone flat. 3 months, Dad admitted. "But with fees, it's worse. We just need some help getting back on track. Just for a little while." "You're doing so well, Mark." You could. No. The silence on the other end was deafening. No. No, I repeated. I told you months ago. I wasn't going to pay for this. You made your choice. Ryan got his house. Now you deal with it. Mark, please, Mom's voice broke in. She'd been listening the whole time. We'll lose everything. You don't understand what this will do to us. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said. You gambled everything on Ryan. You treated me like an ATM you could guilt into saving you. And now the bill has come due. Dad's voice hardened. You're really going to sit back and watch your parents lose their home? Yes, I said calmly. Because it's not just your home anymore, is it? It's Ryan's house. And if he's not man enough to pay for it, maybe he shouldn't live in it. The line went dead. Over the next few weeks, the fallout spread like wildfire. Ryan called me, cursing me out. You think you're so much better than me? You think just because you've got money, you can look down on us? You're pathetic, Mark. Pathetic. I didn't even argue. I just hung up. Sophie texted me paragraphs about how I was cruel and jealous, that I would regret abandoning family when karma came for me. I blocked her. And my parents, oh, they tried everything. Begging, yelling, crying. Even extended family got involved. My aunt called me to say, Mark, they're your parents. How could you let them suffer like this? I asked her one question. If they'd bought me a house instead of Ryan, would you be calling him to bail them out? She didn't answer. Then came the foreclosure notice. Ryan and Sophie were forced to move out. My parents were humiliated, whispering to neighbors about unexpected financial struggles, as if they hadn't orchestrated the entire disaster themselves. I should have felt vindicated. I should have walked away and let them deal with the mess. But part of me wasn't satisfied. Not yet. Because here's the thing. I had quietly been preparing. See, while my parents were busy funneling money into Ryan's house, I'd been meeting with my lawyer. We went over the family trust, the will, the assets. And what I discovered made my blood run cold. Nearly everything, savings, property, investments, was earmarked for Ryan. I was little more than a footnote. It was the same story, just in legal ink. My parents weren't just favoring Ryan in life. They were planning to leave me nothing in death. So I did what any self-respecting man would do. I cut them off, legally. With my lawyer's help, I drafted my own plans. I set up trusts, investments, and contingencies that bypassed my parents entirely. I made it crystal clear. If they expected me to inherit anything, they were wrong. I didn't want their money. I didn't need their assets. But I also made sure of one thing, that when the time came, the truth would be revealed. The final reckoning came at Christmas. We hadn't spoken in months, but I agreed to attend the holiday dinner. I wanted them to see me, not desperate, not bitter, but thriving, confident, untouchable. The house was smaller now, rented. The grandeur was gone. Ryan and Sophie sat sullen at the table, their smugness replaced by quiet resentment. My parents looked older, tired, worn down by the stress. Dinner was awkward, filled with forced smiles and thinly veiled tension. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. Mark, we just want to say we're sorry. Things didn't turn out how we planned. I looked around the table, meeting each pair of eyes. No, I said. They turned out exactly how you planned. You bet everything on Ryan. You dismissed me as a safety net. And now you want me to feel guilty because the plan failed. Mom's eyes welled with tears. We only wanted the best for both of you. No, I said coldly. You wanted the best for Ryan. I was just the insurance policy. But here's the thing, you never asked what I wanted. You never saw me as someone who deserved more. And now, you've lost everything trying to prop him up. Ryan slammed his fist on the table. You think you're so much better than me. You think just because you've got money and a condo, you've won? Newsflash, Mark, you'll die alone. At least I have Sophie. Sophie shifted uncomfortably, but didn't speak. I leaned back. You're right, Ryan. I might die alone. But at least I won't die broke, desperate, and living off scraps from other people. At least I built my life myself. The room fell silent. Here's where the quiet revenge came in. A few months later, my parents tried to revisit their will. They came to me, humbly this time, saying they wanted to make things right. But it was too late. The lawyer they'd gone to called me, explaining that any attempt to change things now would be contested, because I had already moved forward. When my parents eventually passed, Ryan expected to inherit everything. But when the papers were read, he got the shock of his life. There was nothing left. The debts, the foreclosure, the reckless spending, it had all hollowed out the estate. Meanwhile, I had my own fortune, my own property, my own legacy. Ryan got the scraps of a dream he never earned. And me? I walked away with peace of mind, knowing I had never needed them in the first place. The irony? My parents had tried to make Ryan the golden child, the one who would carry the family name forward. But in the end, it was me, the overlooked, the dismissed, the selfish one, who built a life worth having. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's not a dramatic confrontation or a public takedown. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's simply living better, smarter, freer, while the people who underestimated you drown in the consequences of their own choices. And that's exactly what I did. I lived well. I lived smart. And I lived without them.